Hi, I'm Dick Gail, professional jazz musician, drummer slash some other surprises that we'll get into later. And this is, I believe, episode 6. It was my first journey into Cleveland, Ohio, of what was to become many memorable visits and some long stays. Anyway, I was with Roy Liberto, and the guys in the band, I want to re-mention them, were originally, it was Roy Liberto on trumpet, Jim Hayslip on trombone, Bob Coquille on bass, Buddy, wait a minute, let me look at that. Names are getting bad. Buddy Johnson on piano, which I have some funny stories about him, and Harry Shields on clarinet. That was the original band. Harry Shields' brother Larry wrote Tiger Rag, and when Harry was playing in this band, Harry was in his 80s, I think, and finally he had to leave. He didn't want to be away from home on account of his wife and that, and he went back to New Orleans, and Bill Kelsey joined the band, and I've got a real funny story about Bill Kelsey. So, so to continue, so the band played there, I think we were in for 3 weeks at the Theatrical Grill, and of course, playing with a Dixieland band, everybody in the band was a lot older than I was, and I was the only guy from up north. Everybody there in the band was from New Orleans. And I just had to get my bebop fixed. So at night, you know, the first question I asked is, where's the black area of town? And where are they playing jazz or bebop? And who are the best cats in town? Where can I go and hear them? So I went up to 105th and Euclid, which was the center of where there was a lot of music activity. And I heard a great tenor saxophone player working in a club called the Club 100. And the Club 100, along with the Majestic Hotels, were the two centers for what was going on in Cleveland as far as bebop and jazz were concerned. And I met a great drummer named Charles Crosby, and Charles took me around and said, come on, I want to take you up and hear this great tenor player. So we went up to hear Joe Alexander. This was probably around maybe 62 or 61, and so I went up to hear Joe, and the Club 100 was a nice little club. It was a little doorway with windows on the front, and the band sat in the windows. So if you were driving up Euclid Avenue, you went right by the club, and you could see the band at night sitting in the window. And they had been there for a long time. Joe had been there for a couple of years. He was probably, except for Bird, one of the greatest tenor players I ever heard. And not so much, you know, Bird had set a whole new genre for bebop, as Train did. And Joe was from a little older school, James Moody, Erskine Hawkins, Illinois Jacquet, that school, you know, mainly melodic lines and beautiful tone. And so anyway, I'll go on about that when I get back to what happened. So I got a chance to go up and hear Joe, and then I heard about a blind organist in town named Eddie Backus, and I went to see Eddie Backus, who was an absolute monster. So those were the first cats that I met: Charles Crosby, Eddie Backus, and Joe Alexander. Meanwhile, I was playing at the Theatrical Grill, which was basically an all-white gangster-owned nightclub, and it was actually owned by the Teamsters Union, kinda, I guess, and that was the affiliation with it. And so we played there for 3 weeks, and every night when we got done playing, because we got done early, I'd go up and I'd catch Joe, and I'd sit in and play a little bit, and maybe go up with Eddie and play a little there, and then we were working on Sundays, and I worked with a couple organ players. I wish I could remember their names, and I can't. And I played on Sundays, so I started playing up off Euclid Avenue on Sunday afternoon, doing Sunday afternoons and a couple of the Saturday afternoon things, even though I was with the Dixieland band downtown. And a lot of the brothers were crushed because they couldn't work in a lot of those white clubs downtown. They wouldn't hire them. But I never saw any of the white boys that were working downtown, never came up into the black clubs to play. They never came up to throw down, because those brothers would just eat them alive. I mean, they were such great musicians. Not that the cats working downtown weren't, but there's a big difference between saying I'm bad and going out with all the bad cats and finding out how bad you really are. So, you know, they played it safe, in my eyes anyways. As do a whole lot of people. You know, they say they play bebop and they play jazz for a living and they never leave their hometowns and they can't do this and they can't do that. And they make a lot of excuses for it. But, you know, there's nothing like jumping on a bus with your instrument and driving, going 1,000 miles away and getting off the bus and saying, all right, I'm the baddest son of a bitch in town and I'm going to prove it. And if I don't prove it, I'm not going to eat this week. And that gives you a lot more definition about how you feel and how you play. So that's what I think always. And I was never afraid to do that. So let's see. So we worked there for 3 weeks. And then we went to Columbus, Ohio, and we worked a big steakhouse. And that's where I met one of my idols for the first time in my life. And that was Jackie Robinson. And he came into the restaurant, and he was there for some event, and they brought him in. I got a chance to talk to him, shake hands, and we were playing opposite Groove Holmes. Groove Holmes and his organ trio were playing the opening set, and then we were the closing band playing Dixieland. And so I got a chance to make friends with Thornell Schwartz, and that was the first time that I met Donald Bailey. And Donald Bailey was one of the drummers that really gave me the incentive to leave home. Because I had a lot of jazz, but it was mostly old jazz and swing and Dixieland and all that my dad played through my Uncle Tony and all that. But somebody gave me a record of Jimmy Smith, and I took it home and played it. And that was the first time that I heard bebop played with an organ trio. And this drummer that was playing with Jimmy, his name was Donald Bailey, and his middle name was Duck. They call him Donald Duck Bailey. Some people just called him Duck, as I do now. And Duck was absolute mayhem. Duck was one of those cats that played really creatively, you know. That's why I think it always bothered me when I played with people, when they say, keep time, play time, or just play straight and all that. There were people that knew nothing about being creative, because people that really played bebop and from the old school, you went up and you did your thing. And if you happened to be really, really good at it, they wanted to hear what you had to say. They didn't want to stifle you to make themselves sound better. They wanted you to do your thing. That's why they hired you, because you're supposed to be something. And that's something people should hear. And people that can't play jazz that attempt to, that's often what they do. They get everybody to go up on the stage and they'll tell you how to play. Use brushes and don't be too fancy. And watch me and follow me, everything I do, you know. And they all need jobs, you know, like becoming plumbers or cleaning out bathrooms or putting roofs on houses, something like that, you know. They don't need to be up on the bandstand, because there are a lot of young people that really want to play, and guys like that crush their spirit, you know. So, but anyway, me hearing Donald and meeting him later in life, we would have become real close friends. But hearing that record changed my life. Then I sat down with that record, and I played it 4 or 5 hours a day for 6 months, trying to copy some of the things he was doing, so that when I go out on the road, I could play them. And eventually I did get a chance to play them, especially when I started working with organ trios. I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in Cleveland a little bit later on, and I'm going to it's something that happens maybe once in a lifetime, and if you're lucky enough not to get in the middle of it, you don't end up dying or go to jail. So I'll fill you in on the details.